started since it's just a little after 1 o'clock. We're going to get the formal part of the ceremony. It would be quick, but everybody can hang out and chat. My name is Kate Marshall. I'm the chair of the Heritage Toronto Board, and thank you all for coming here. It's wonderful to see people coming out for such an illustrious plaque. We're really very excited about this one. First of all, I would really like to thank our partner at Scotiabank because they help to fund these plaques, which take quite a bit of production. When you see it, you'll know why. So we very much appreciate the partnership that we get from Scotiabank across the city. And I just wanted to tell you, you may or may not know, Heritage Toronto is a city agency. We're a not-for-profit. And what our mission is to celebrate, educate, and tell the stories of Toronto and across all types of heritage, archaeological, architectural, environmental and cultural. And I would suggest this falls a little bit into our cultural, but we're very much about the people, the events, and the places. And this is a wonderful plaque because we don't do as many people plaques, I think, as we would like to. And we certainly encourage all the citizens to share their stories about famous Torontonians across the GTA. And today, our poet laureate, George C. Clarke, was the one who came to Heritage Toronto and told us that we really need to commemorate a very memorable and celebrated and talented two poets, Milton Acorn and GWENDOLYN MACEWEN. So we're really thrilled that you made the recommendation and that we're here today to do this. Two other things that the Heritage Toronto does that I just want to share with you. One of the biggest things is our walking tours, and you may or may not, we do them all over the city. We do about 100 a year from April to October, so there's still time if you haven't been on a walking tour. I really encourage you to get out and learn about your neighborhood or another neighborhood in the city. And our other event that's very coming up quickly are our Heritage Awards, which are on October 13th, and we'll hand out some postcards so you can hear about that. But this is our fundraising event of the year. We all get together at Kerner Hall. We have a speaker this year. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name. I should have written it down. Anyway, we have a very good speaker.
Very good speaker.
Yeah. Stacey's going to give me the postcard. So we always have an annual William Kilbourne lecturer who comes and speaks about an issue and a topic. And then we give out awards to people, communities, companies, organizations who help to celebrate the heritage across the city. So that can be individuals, it can be the Junction Community Organization, it can be an architect who's done an excellent job renovating a heritage building. But October 13th, it's a really wonderful event. If you're interested in Toronto and you're interested in the people, places, and events of the city, I would really strongly recommend that you consider joining us on that date. So first of all, I wanted to say a little bit about GWENDOLYN MACEWEN and Milton Acorn. They were both distinguished. Great. No worries. Yeah, you just do what you are. You go right ahead. Okay.
It's poetry in motion.
If I stand in the middle, maybe they'll stop. You could learn something. GWENDOLYN MACEWEN and Milton Acorn were both distinguished award-winning Canadian literary artists. They married in 1962, and they very briefly lived in a house on 2nd Avenue here, number 10, which we have been told anecdotally did burn down a few years ago. So unfortunately, we can't put the plaque in front of the house, but we tried to put it as close as we could. Would you like to?
Sorry.
Unfortunately, Milton and GWENDOLYN broke up after a few months, less than a year. But they both went on and had wonderful careers and made important contributions to Canadian literary culture. Acorn was awarded the first People's Poet Award in 1970, and he later won the Governor General's Award for his writing. And GWENDOLYN MACEWEN won 2 Governor General Awards and a Queen's Silver Jubilee for her work. She also wrote numerous radio docudramas for the CBC. So they're both very accomplished Canadian literary figures, and we're very happy to be celebrating them today. So I'd like to begin the ceremonies by asking Christopher Hayes from Scotiabank to say a few words as our program sponsor.
Thank you, Kate.
Yes.
I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of Scotiabank to unveil this plaque celebrating Gwendolyn MacEwen and Milton Acorn. Every plaque that Heritage Toronto produces is a community building venture in which people come together to tell the stories that have shaped them and their city. Our shared commitment engaging citizens is what brought us here today. At Scotiabank, we recognize that enjoying arts is an act which brings families together, colleagues, friends, and communities together. That's why Scotiabank sponsors a variety of community events, including the Caribbean Carnival, Busker Fest, Contact, Photo Festival, and Nuit Blanche, and why we are proud to be here today, celebrating the lives and poetry of these fine poets. On behalf of Scotiabank, I'd like to offer my sincere congratulations on this plaque. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and again, thank you to Scotiabank for their continued support of our plaque program. So next, I'd like to introduce Councillor McConnell, sorry, not McDonald, oh my goodness, McConnell, who is the councillor for Ward 28, which includes this area. So thank you.
So first of all, it's always an honor to be at the unveiling of any of our plaques. We have quite a number of them throughout my ward, as I have the St. Lawrence. Oh, well, that's do you not know what that is?
That's a whisper, Jack.
And it doesn't make any noise, even as a... Yeah, right. Anyway, that's another piece of history. So we wish it was more history. So I think that as part of our ward, we have the old town, we have the first Parliament site, we have Cabbage Town, we have some very, very old places. But we don't often think of the island and its great heritage and the fact that in fact it began very long ago. You'll remember that Babe Ruth knocked out his first homer out of the Maple Leaf Stadium over on the other side, and we've had great yachters, great racers, great canoeists that have come from here. But I think sometimes it's pretty important to think about a place and the heritage of its people. So although we are looking to make this an environmental heritage district, which would be the first time a natural heritage district, the first time we've done that, I think we really... Hello! How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good, and here's one of our oldest, he's our historian. He knows more about the island than any of us. Yes. Nice to see you, Johnny. So we here have some of the most amazing combinations of people because this was a magnet, particularly in the 60s. In the early days, it was a place in which people not only lived here in the summer, but began to really, over the years, begin to make their tent platforms more permanent. And so what you began to do is build a year-round community. Not an easy community to live in during the winter, and a beautiful summer is really what we think of when we see the island. But the people that built this community also were the people who were about to be evicted from this community. So Gwendolyn and Milton would have lived here in about that time, and really in that very scary time where islanders had to come together while the sheriff was coming in to take them off the island. And so it is a place, in my view, of great citizen activism. But it also was a place where it had an eclectic group of citizens, if you think of it that way. And it was also a magnet not just for activists, but for artists. And so it really became also one of the first artist colonies in our city, a place where all artists could come together, and still continues to have a very large population of artists, musicians, and if you, as you're going back to the ferry docks, please walk by and see the mosaic as you go by, another piece of art by our community. There was also a community that looked at their school, which was being apparently was being eroded into the lake. And the island school, and said, no, we need a new school. And when we couldn't figure out what to do with the old one, they repurposed it and put it into one of the largest and first artist communities. So that's a retreat at Gibraltar Point for artists, for writers, for poets who want to go and spend some tranquil hours or weeks writing some of their inspirational work. You're going to hear from George, and I know that he'll be much more eloquent than me, but I wanted you to know a little bit about that history of the people, because today what we're doing is celebrating two great artists, two great poets who were here and were part of this, the fabric of this community. And I think that spirit of individualism and that spirit of creativity is embedded in the residents who live here. And I mean, for me, it's a bit of nirvana to be their representative, because I get to see some pretty amazing stories. But it's also important in our city, if I could just put on my city hat for a minute, to recognize where artists have grown up and lived and produced. And the role that art and artists play in the fabric of our city. I think actually, I think it's the third or fourth most important economic driver of our city. And so I think when we're thinking of history, we shouldn't just be thinking of Victorians and of early days, but we should be thinking of living history as the people who live here today are delivering legacies for the future. So I'm very pleased to be here to honor Milton and Gwendolyn. They come to a very wonderful place to be honored, and they are alongside the great Jack Layton, whose ashes are scattered just around the corner. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. And now it's a great privilege, and I feel really honored that we have Toronto's Poet Laureate with us. George Eliot Clark is Toronto's 4th Poet Laureate. He's the E.J. Pratt Professor of Canadian Literature at the University of Toronto, an Order of Canada appointee, and has many other honors and accomplishments that we could go on and on. But it is very, very nice. I really feel very honored that you come out, and first of all, as I said, to recommend this plaque. It's wonderful to have you engage with Heritage Toronto this way. And we're very pleased you can join us to say a few words as a very knowledgeable person about Gwendolyn.
Well, thank you so much. It's marvelous. When do we actually get to unveil?
At the end.
Oh, at the end. Okay. I just wanted to know.
You're the last speaker.
You have between now and 6.
All right. So is this the time when I read the poems? Now is this when I do that? Okay. So let me say a couple of things very quickly. As many of you probably already know, GWENDOLYN MACEWEN and Milton Acorn had an unhappy marriage. But the happiest part of it, which was actually pretty brief, was probably their stay here in this community. When it was very much, as I think it remains now, a bohemian, artistically oriented, creative redoubt in this great city. And I think that this community and their presence in this community, as part of this community back in the day, and their living resonant spirit here with us right now, reminds us, or should remind us, again, as Councillor McConnell just pointed out, of the great role of culture and art in driving forward the economics of this city and making it a great city in which to live and do artistic work, and for tourists to come and visit and do the heritage walks and so on and so on. Oh, Gwendolyn lived here and she lived with Milton Acorn here, etc., etc. And I think that this is all extremely important, and we need more and more and more of it. more plaques, more recognition, more poets, artists, musicians, singers, filmmakers, sculptors, even sculptors being recognized, maybe even a horticulturalist every now and then, and so on. But back to, I'm sorry for speaking so fast, I come from Halifax, so I'll excuse it that way, where you learn to talk real fast, especially if you're a politician. But anyway, all that to one side. Coming back to Gwen and Milton, I myself, as a young poet, in my teens and in my 20s, was really captivated by their story. And in fact, I was shocked when I learned that they had been married. I still remember the day my professor at Dalhousie told me that, oh yeah, they were married. I said, what? I couldn't believe it. Because of course, Milton Acorn was a cigar smoking communist, for crying out loud, and then Gwendolyn MacEwen, with whom I once shared a beer, for crying out loud, on Colley Street, Free Times Cafe. It was very, very much fey, F-E-Y, mystical, and so on. It was really hard to consider the two of them being together. But there's a photograph, and it's part of the plaque, of course, which proves the point that they were, in fact, a couple. An extremely important couple in terms of Canadian poetry. I like to think of them as being the Ian and Sylvia. I'm dating myself here. The Ian and Sylvia of Canadian poetry. Maybe I should say the Leonard and Suzanne of Canadian poetry. I'm still dating myself here, I know. But in any event, really an important couple for the flowering of English Canadian poetry, which took place primarily centering in Toronto in the later 1960s. And it's really wonderful to have them recognized here. I'm going to read a couple of their poems, so I'll just finish up here by saying that I also want to thank the City Council of Toronto for having the position of Poet Laureate. I think it's great, and I'm not saying that just because I am the Poet Laureate for now, for another couple months, but because I do think that it's part of being a progressive, interesting, engaged, forward-looking entity, as a community, as a city, that the City Council, the councillors writ large, are interested in recognizing the arts in this way. I also want to thank Scotiabank for supporting Heritage Toronto and supporting the plaque, for being an excellent corporate citizen. And I'm going to deliberately mix up bank slogans here, but Scotiabank proves that banking can be just as comfortable all the time. So excuse me for that, but it's a great slogan, and why shouldn't Scotiabank have it, at least for today? In any event, sorry for my off-the-cuff extemporaneous commentaries, etc., but I'll get to the poems now, and I thank you all for your patience. The poem I want to read by Gwendolyn MacEwen is called "The Compass," and I'll read it as best I can. It's, I believe, based on a true story, a train ride she took from Fredericton, New Brunswick to Halifax, Nova Scotia in 1968. And the compass is about a conversation she has with a porter on the train. And I'm going to imagine, it seems to me that the porter was probably black, as many of them were 50 years ago and before that even. So as a black Nova Scotian, Africadian, this poem has always spoken to me quite a bit. But I hope that you will appreciate it as well. So here it is, The Compass. Now, miss, the first thing you gotta understand is that the earth moves around the sun. I tell you this to help you get ahead in life. And the next thing is you gotta watch your grammar, miss, your grammar. Because that's important to get ahead in life. And don't be afraid to face a big conglomeration of people. Me, I'm not afraid even though I just got out of the hospitality. Because I know where I stand, miss, and everything's gotta go and come back home like the tides. Now, you give me a ship and I'll take her to Germany or Africa, you name it, because I know how the Gulf Stream divides the world in two. And I'm not scared to cross the great attitude. Yes, miss, attitude. They say the Atlantic, but I know it's the attitude, because you go down the longitude to reach the attitude. You follow me? Stars. Sure, I can sail by the North Star and the South Star and the East Star and the West Star. Even on this train, miss, you don't know it, but we be sailing by those stars because they're the compass points for all the world. See this compass? You turn 5 degrees, then you come back home. You gotta always come back home, miss, like the tides. Look now, you be always at the center, even in a big conglomeration of people, And all the words you talk here go down to the sea, and the tide brings them back tomorrow morning. I tell you this so you won't fear, and you always know just where you stand and how you're turning. He turned the old German compass over and over in his sure black hands. I had this 15 years, he said, but I give it to you now so you can get ahead in life and learn the longitudes and attitudes and figure out just where you stand. All I could think of to give him in return was my book of poems, a pointless gift. But taking it, he smiled and said, I've been doing some writing too to get ahead in life. And pulled out from a suitcase, old as the crazy seas he sailed, something he handled with great respect, a battered notebook where he'd written in big, scared lines the first few letters of the alphabet. GWENDOLYN MACEWEN. Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Gwen. Milton Acorn. And this poem is titled The Island. From the island means Monago. And I got to mention this, as was mentioned in the introduction and the transbiographies. Milton Acorn received the People's Poet Award in 1970 at a tavern here in Toronto from a group of poets, including Margaret Atwood and Irving Layton and so on, because he didn't receive the Governor General's Award in 1969, which he thought he would receive for I've Tasted My Blood, which is a fine collection of poems. But guess who won the Governor General's Award in 1969? GWENDOLYN! So poetic justice is going on here somewhere. I don't know.
Or salt in the wound.
Yeah, salt in the wound. Thank you, Chris. So anyway, and of course at that point he was still kind of just upset about their divorce and so on. But anyway, Milton Acorn, The Island, and of course this is about basically Prince Edward Island. Since I'm island born, homes as precise as if a mumbly old carpenter, shoulder straps crossed wrong, laid it out refigured to the last 3/8 of shingle. Nowhere that plow-cut worms heal themselves in red loam, spruces squat, skirts in sand, or the stones of a river rattle its dark tunnel under the elms. Is there a spot not measured by hands, no direction I couldn't walk to the wave-lined edge of home? Quiet shores, beaches that roar, but walk 2,000 paces and the sea becomes an odd, shining glimpse among the jeweled, zigzag low hills. Any wonder your eyelashes are wings to fly your look both in and out. In the coves of the land, all things are discussed. In the ranged jaws of the Gulf, a red tongue. Indians say a musical god took up his brush and painted it, named it in his own language, The Island. Milton Acorn. I've been remiss. I got to thank a couple more people. I want to thank Heritage Toronto for running with this idea. Candace McCavitt for all the email exchanges in the last little while. I got to thank Mr. Chris Jones of Toronto Culture for always being ready to take the email from me and follow through beautifully and so on, and give a lot of leadership. And forgive me if there's anyone else I know I should be mentioning, but somehow your name isn't coming to my mind right away. Believe me, I'm extremely grateful for this moment. And last well, actually, this is the least thing. I have copies of this book available for sale, only $20. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. And now we are going to unveil. And actually, I just wanted to correct my error earlier. Just our event at Heritage Toronto. Sorry, you can go around the back there if you like. And our Heritage Toronto Awards and Kilburn Lecture on October 13th. It is Raoul Bardwaj, who is the head of the Toronto Community Foundation, who's speaking about Toronto as a philanthropic city, which is a really interesting way to look at our city. So we can hand these around if anybody is interested. There's lots of different ticket levels. And now I would ask the people, Councillor McConnell and Chris from Scotiabank and George, let's gather around.
If you just have like 3 people on each side of the podium, then we can...
Okay.
Okay, we can do that. Very good at that.
When we put off, we're going to put it back. Up to the ground like that.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
For Chris.
So try not to step on the garden. Yeah.
Yeah.
The flowers. Okay, so
Yeah, please.
smells delicious.
All right.
1, 2,
3.
woo!
Holy smokes! Congratulations! Congratulations,
It's a lovely,
Ward
lovely
Island.
photo. Wonderful. All around.
I'll
Okay.
take the call.
These are
Holy smokes! Marvelous,
these are great
marvelous.
plaques because they're not.
They last.
They last and they have pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
I think that's why.
And the poems.
Sorry, Jeff, did you want to?
That's right.
Yes, some lovely, generous person has already decorated the box.
Oh my golly, this is beautiful.
Guerrilla gardening. That's right. Yay!
Oh. Not to take up more time, but is it all right if I actually read these two?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I know anybody could, but you know I'm feeling the spirit.
You can do it best.
As poet laureate, I'll read the poem.
Yay!
Live with me on earth under the invisible daylight moon. And this, of course, is Milton Acorn. So here it is. It's a love poem. And I gotta say, Rosemary Sullivan found it, or recommended it. And of course, she did the biography of Rosemary Sullivan. Of Gwendolyn MacEwen. So anyway, so she suggested this poem. And so here it is. Live with me on earth among red berries and the bluebirds and leafy young twigs whispering within such little spaces between such floors of green, such figures in the clouds that two of us could fill our lives with delicate wanting. Where stars past the spruce copse mingle with fireflies, or the dayscape flings 1,000 tones of light back at the sun. Be any one of the colors of an earth lover. Walk with me, and sometimes cover your shadow with mine. So, and this is apparently a poem that she wrote for Milton. So it's really great to have it here. And this is that Milton wrote for her. Excuse me, Milton wrote for her. So anyway, this is Skulls and Drums, and this is Gwendolyn MacEwen, and this is supposedly a poem that she wrote for Milton Acorn too. So her love poem now. Skulls and Drums. Our skulls like drums, like tonal caves, echo enclose, while the ribs of our bodies are great halls, and the separate ships of our senses for a minute anchored, for a minute in the same harbor anchor. Yeah.
Thank you all again for coming, and please go online, heritagetoronto.org, if you are able, and come out to some other events. We have things happening, as I say, right through October. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi.
How are you doing? All right. Please do. All right. Yeah.
I love that.